evening, hello and welcome to the Paxmundi show on Darkcity Radio every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. GMT, the Paxmundi show with tales of war, peace and resistance news, film, book and music reviews. Today's this week's breaking news, the big story is the US and Taliban talks. The US has now entered into formal talks with the Taliban. These are being held in Doha in Qatar, and the agenda includes the Taliban to break all ties to Al-Qaeda and the swapping of prisoners. So whilst the UN states it's going to continue military operations in Afghanistan, President Obama, speaking from the G8 in Northern Ireland, was saying, we're going to support these efforts in partnership with the Afghan government. I want to repeat, we don't anticipate that this process will be easy or quick, but we must pursue it in parallel with our military approach. And we, in the meantime, remain fully committed to our military efforts to defeat Al-Qaeda and to support Afghan national security forces. Meanwhile, Afghan President Karzai has objected to the talks and his non-inclusion in the talks at present, and also to the Taliban calling its office in Doha the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which, for those who recall, was the name of the former state of Afghanistan before the US occupation. And there are supports that Karzai has suspended security talks with the US over inconsistent statements and actions over the Taliban negotiations. The Taliban, meanwhile, are clearly taking the talks seriously. The talks have been approved by their leader in hiding, Mullah Omar. On Tuesday, a Taliban spokesperson, Sahai Shaheen, stated the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan follows both military and political options in aims which are limited to Afghanistan to initiate a contact with the United Nations as well as with international, regional and non-governmental organizations. The US NATO commander in Afghanistan, General Joseph Dunford, meanwhile announced that NATO has formally handed over control of security to the Afghan government, and that the NATO ISAF forces are now officially in a support role until the withdrawal in 2014. General Dunford said, "Last week I was responsible for security here in Afghanistan, and today, as a result of that ceremony, the responsibility is now with the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of the Interior on behalf of President Karzai." And that is a significant change from yesterday to today. So it's not just functioning or intent, it is a statement of fact, and in terms of who has the lead for security responsibility. So that's all very clear. You know, after 12 years of occupation and war against the Taliban, with the US and the West funding the Taliban, as well as the Afghan forces, we're now going to have a negotiated peace. Makes you wonder what it was all about. And, you know, who benefits. Clearly not the Afghan people, who've now suffered a virtually continuous state of war for the last 40 years. But clearly someone is benefiting, and you can be pretty sure that, you know, it will be the corporations, you know, and their interests. So, meanwhile, in the US, the big debate there has been over over Edward Snowden's releases about the PRISM project, the NSA PRISM project, and the NSA surveillance that's been going on globally using Verizon metadata and other metadata obtained from most of the other IT and telecommunications providers in the US. There's been a lot of debate both in Congress, in the media, generally, and on the left and the right. It is interesting that you have, you know, commentators both on the Democrat side and the Republicans who are interested in defending personal liberties, and also there is a great public interest. I contrast that really to here in the UK, where Edward Snowden also released information last week about the UK organised surveillance by GCHQ of the G20 talks, where they were bugging people, hacking into their phone accounts, and also setting up false internet, bogus internet cafes to spy on friendly nations, allied countries like India and Brazil, all both British allies, but yet we were spying on all of these states. And despite the fact that this was actually broken by The Guardian, there has been very little discussion at all, very little public interest, and zero interest by the politicians, whether left or right. Clearly that's because the surveillance was done under a Labour government, and the current administration, the Lib Dem Conservative coalition, will do exactly the same. And what is, I think, the worrying factor here is that the British population really are not that interested at all in spying on foreigners, you know, as long as it's happening to foreigners. So meanwhile, in the US, there has been, as I say, a lot of interest. The Congress have called the NSA officials to explain what they've been doing. And these intelligence officials have been vigorously defending the NSA surveillance program, which was exposed by whistleblower Edward Snowden. So NSA Director General Keith Alexander had claimed that the NSA surveillance has exposed more than 50 potential terrorist threats that have been thwarted, including 10 domestic attacks in the United States. He's saying that in recent years, these programs, together with other intelligence, have protected the US and our allies from terrorist threats across the globe, including helping to prevent the potential terrorist events over 50 times since 9/11. Meanwhile, FBI Deputy Director Sean Joyce has claimed that 2 newly declassified cases were uncovered by the NSA surveillance. One of these was involving a group of men in San Diego who were convicted of sending money to a militant group in Somalia. And the other is described as a plot to bomb the New York Stock Exchange. So he stated the NSA, utilizing 702 authority, was monitoring a known extremist in Yemen. This individual was in contact with an individual in the US by the name of Khalid Kazani. Kazani and other individuals that we identified through a visa, and I'm not sure what exactly that is. I think it's some kind of financial search order that the FBI applied for through the FISC, were able to detect a nascent plotting to bomb the New York Stock Exchange. Kazani had been providing information and support to this plot. The FBI disrupted and arrested these individuals. Now, in reality, Khalid Kazani was never actually charged over any New York bombing plot. But in 2010, Kazani did plead guilty to sending money to Al-Qaeda. Now, Sean Joyce also claimed that the NSA surveillance was also leading to the arrests of Najibullah Zazi, who was allegedly plotting to bomb the New York subway, and also to the uncovering of David Headley, who was alleged to have been involved in the Mumbai attacks in India. So Sean Joyce saying in the fall of 2009, the National Security Agency, using 702 authority, intercepted an email from a terrorist located in Pakistan. That individual was talking to an individual located in the United States, talking about perfecting a recipe for explosives. Through legal process, that individual was identified as Najibullah Zazi. He was located in Denver, Colorado. The FBI followed Zazi to New York City, and later we executed search warrants with the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force and the New York Police Department, and found bomb-making components in backpacks. Also, David Headley, a US citizen living in Chicago, the FBI received intelligence regarding his possible involvement in the 2009 Mumbai attacks, responsible for killing over 160 people. The Guardian newspaper, which here in the UK, which actually exposed the NSA information from Edward Snowden, has questioned the role of NSA surveillance in uncovering these two alleged plots, stating that data mining through PRISM and other National Security Agency programs played a relatively minor role in the interception of the two plots. So there you have it. Clearly, the intelligence agencies are trying to justify this wide-sweeping surveillance there in the UK. Meanwhile, here in in the US, meanwhile here in the UK, we're quite complacent about it. We've had it here for over 20 years with the Echelon project. I think we've probably got used to it. Just a comment on the alleged terrorists who've been convicted or admitting to funding terrorism, to funding Al-Qaeda. This week, the Obama administration has stated that they are now sending arms to the Free Syrian Army, to the rebels in Syria. The major recipient of these arms will be the largest militia organization there, Al-Nusra, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. So under US Justice Department rules, President Obama is actually guilty of materially supporting Al-Qaeda. I just wonder when he's going to hand himself in. Continuing from last week's talk about the balkanization of the Middle East and the redrawing of the Middle East as a part of what's going on in Syria to bring about the breakup of Syria. I've been reading an interesting book this week by Jonathan Cook. The title is Israel and a Clash of Civilizations, Iraq, Iran, and the Plan to Remake the Middle East. Now, the basic synopsis is that Cook argues that Israel's policies are leading to civil war and partition. Their vision of the Middle East, of a redrawn, remodeled Middle East, is very much in line with the New World Order vision of the neoconservatives from the George Bush government era. And this is, really, it is interesting stuff, because I know that we see these events unfolding day by day, and we've been led to believe that all of these recent events in Libya and Syria, Egypt, etc., are a part of this Arab Spring, this democracy and freedom movement that's supposedly, liberating the Arab world, but certainly when we look at the background and these kind of long-term plans, we can see something else that is far more sinister. The book by Jonathan Cook highlights the implementation of the outlines of an Israeli plan that was initially set down in an essay written by someone called Oded Yinan. Now, this is called the Yinan Plan. And this was written in 1980-81 and was then published by the World Zionist Organization in 1982. Now, what it was advocating was the creation of a greater Israel, which was not a new idea. I mean, this had originally been a part of the project, the Zionist project of Theodore Herzl and the early Zionists. But what this document did was to actually talk about how they might bring this about and how Israel could be transformed into a regional imperial power with through the fragmentation of the surrounding Arab states. So I'm just going to quote from some lines of the Yinan plan of that document. The dissolution of Syria and Iraq into ethnically or religiously unique areas like Lebanon. Then further on, Syria will fall apart in accordance with its ethnic and religious structure into several states along the lines as present-day Lebanon. Now, this was written at a time when Lebanon had been, during the Lebanese Civil War, it was for some years partitioned into separate statelets. Effectively, they were separate statelets, and at one point Israel did actually occupy the South Lebanon, and that was a quasi-state occupied by the Israelis and supported by sections of the Christian Maronite minority there. Now, it goes on to say, so that there will be a Shiite and Alawite state on the Mediterranean coastal regions, a Sunni state in the Aleppo area, another Sunni state in the Damascus area, which will be hostile to its northern neighbours, and the Druze, who will also set up a state, maybe in the Golan area. This was perceived that in this way, by breaking up Syria and Iraq into ethnically or religiously separate statelets, that the state of Israel would be guaranteed peace and control of the Middle East. It goes on to say the way in which it was envisaged that this new empire would be ruled would be much like the West Bank and Gaza, that they would be treated like the Bantustan states, where the Bantustan territories were treated by the apartheid South Africa, which would mean that these areas, these territories would be completely subsidiary to Israeli control, to Israeli interests, but would be controlled, or the security would be given to local militias, which they're called the creation of Haddad forces. These are village militias, so that these militias run by warlords would be, dependent on Israel and thereby, loyal to Israel, and that any revolt or disagreement would be punished by Israel through the use of mass humiliation of the population, much like they do in the West Bank, or by the mass military punishment of the population, much like they currently do in the territory of Gaza. So I'm just wondering if anybody else has got any thoughts on these issues, on the remaking of the Middle East, on what's currently happening in Syria and the rest of the Middle East. If you have, perhaps you'd like to call in and chat. You can Skype on Bob's Backyard, or phone in on 0161 298 0298. For anybody who's outside the UK, that is plus 44 161 298 0298. So this is the theme for this evening, that I'm going to continue with the plans for redrawing the Middle East, the Middle East project. So this is something that's being continued by the current regime. As I was saying, it was originally proposed by the Bush regime, and certainly it started under that regime, the invasion of Iraq, which was carried out for the spurious reasons of, searching for these weapons of mass destruction, to get international support for this military adventure and intervention, much like the issue of the so-called chemical weapons is now being used to justify intervention in Syria. The alleged proof that there are chemical weapons have been used in Syria is being used by President Obama as his red line for direct intervention, and now the direct arming of the Free Syrian Army, the al-Nusra, al-Qaeda affiliates. So this is despite the fact that the United Nations has thoroughly investigated the 4 known incidents of the use of chemical weapons in Syria, and that the investigator Carla Del Ponte has clearly stated that these weapons were used by the rebels. That has been stated very clearly, and it has even, been supported by other events whereby al-Nusra rebels who were in Turkey, in Istanbul, were actually found to be in possession of chemicals and unknown substances, allegedly sarin gas, which were confiscated and taken by the Turkish authorities. But this was reported by Reuters, but was not picked up at all by the Western press, and indeed it's the last that we've heard of it. But there is a very clear, plot there, to introduce chemical weapons, use chemical weapons in Syria, then to blame the Syrian army, the Assad government, and to use it as a ploy to intervene in Syria. To escalate this further, clearly the US is, despite President Obama's assurances, the US is preparing to have boots on the ground if they're necessary. The US has been carrying out strategic maneuvers in Jordan. As a part of this, they've actually transferred cruise missiles and other surface-to-air missiles into Jordan for these operations, along with several divisions of Marines. And it is stated that both the Marines and these missile units will be staying on after the end of these maneuvers to protect Jordan. So, there you've clearly got a US frontline military force now on the borders of Syria. Again, not widely reported, and no great, discussion about the way in which this, creeping intervention is developing. And of course, all this is happening while there's still these talks, this Geneva peace conference involving Russia and the US, UK, and other parties, as well as the Assad government, although the Syrian opposition, the SNC, Syrian National Council, has refused to take part, clearly because they don't need to. This conference, is merely a camouflage for the military plans that are going on to intervene in Syria to bring about this remaking of Syria, or breaking up of Syria into its constituent parts. As a part of this breaking up is the ethnic cleansing of different areas, which is being carried out by the activities of al-Nusra. This is a pattern that we've seen in Iraq before, and previously also in the Balkans, in former Yugoslavia, where areas which were generally mixed, of mixed ethnic or religious origins, were ethnically cleansed by the use of fear and terror, by carrying out atrocities. People will flee for their lives if they see their neighbours and other people from their communities being killed. They're going to flee and to either go into becoming internally displaced, move to areas where there's other people of the same ethnic or religious group as themselves, or to actually leave the country and become a part of the wider refugee diaspora of Syrians in surrounding countries. So there was recently an incident reported, which is a very clear operation designed at creating this kind of terror, where in the village of Hetla, in the province of Dar es-Jaz, there was an occupation of the village by the al-Nusra Front, and as a part of that occupation, they went around and they killed over 60 people, and clearly the people who were killed were chosen on the basis of their ethnic origin. Now, the al-Nusra Front are a Sunni militia. They're Sunni fundamentalists, much like their allies Al-Qaeda. They're basically Sunni, and they perceive all other religious denominations as being apostates, and therefore needing to be killed. This is a part of the kind of fundamentalist Sunni outlook that all other Muslim denominations are apostate. So over 60 people were killed in this small village, and afterwards in videos of this, the perpetrators of this horrific war crime did film it, and it was put up on the internet. It is available. It was on YouTube, but YouTube have actually removed it because they found it offensive. It does show the perpetrators of this crime, going around and shouting, Allah Akbar, God is great, and then, they'll uncover some of the bodies and say, these were Alawites, and they're Alawite dogs, like Bashir, referring to President Assad, who is also an Alawite, and saying that they all need to be killed. and this is, as I say, this is a very clear, we've seen these sort of tactics used before, used in Palestine, used in former Yugoslavia, used in Iraq to ethnically cleanse areas, and this is how they will bring about the dispersal of different ethnic groups into the majority parts of Syria in order to bring about this fragmentation. So this plan, which was conceived originally by the Israelis and then redrawn under the neoconservatives, the Republicans, was called the New Middle East. And this was it was a new phase, a new phraseology, a new way of looking at the Middle East. And this was first announced by Condoleezza Rice, who, when talking about the destruction of Lebanon by Israel and the Israeli attacks on Lebanon, described these as the birth pangs of a Middle East, of a new Middle East, and stated, that what we have to do, we have to be certain that we're pushing forward to the new Middle East and not to the old one. Obviously, at the time, Condoleezza Rice was criticised for her indifference to the suffering of the victims of those bombings and attacks. But I think the importance of her remarks were really overlooked at the time. So when she, made this statement, it was really announcing the existence of a new geostrategy under the US, Britain, Israel, a new way of dealing with the Middle East. So the first part of that under the Bush administration was the occupation, invasion and occupation of Iraq under the spurious guise of searching for weapons of mass destruction. But this was really the start of the Balkanization of Iraq, the creation of local militias under the control of the tribal leaders as a part of what they called the awakening. Was clearly a creation of, an armed force from the Sunni side, armed by the Americans to counter the other militias that they'd created, which were mainly Shiite. The Mahdi army and other Shiite militias. At the same time, the the particular special treatment given to Kurdistan, again, had ensured that has become already a quasi-state, a separate autonomous territory. Now we're seeing, just this year, ongoing ethnic conflict there, bombings after bombings after bombings by various groups, mainly Sunni attacks on Shiite civilians. But then we've seen attacks by the Shiite dominated government forces against demonstrators from the Sunni community. So this is really escalating in Iraq. We've seen over 2,000 people killed in the last month, and this is just phenomenal. It really it can't continue. We are going to see, at the same time as the ongoing militarization of Syria, we're going to see the development of a civil war in Iraq as well. The Anglo-American military roadmap, which is the widening of this Middle East to include the Far East, the Near East, moving to Pakistan. It also looks to break up Pakistan in the long term as well. Pakistan is too powerful. It's whilst it's been subservient generally and been useful to both the UK first, countering the independence and autonomy of India, and later to the US in providing a proxy to organise the Afghan intervention under the Mujahideen in the 1980s. Under Musharraf, it was a very, much a puppet regime. But now the US and UK no longer see the need for an independent Pakistan, particularly now that Pakistan has a nuclear weapon, and also now that India is back within the Western fold. India is now a US ally, and therefore Pakistan is no longer to be trusted. They're no longer required, and this is part of the reason that I think we're seeing these continued drone attacks and bombings in Pakistan. These are being perpetrated by the drone attacks directly by the US military and the CIA, and the bombings most definitely also by the CIA in Pakistan. I think we will see, a widening revolt in the tribal regions, particularly after the Western forces leave Afghanistan in 2014. Pakistan will have served its purpose, and its destruction will start. A major part of this will be the secession of the Baloch region of Pakistan. Now, most people haven't heard of of Baluchistan. They haven't heard of the Baluks because it's just not widely reported. This internal conflict, which has been ongoing in the territory that's known as as Pakistan, prior to Indian independence, and then to the partition of India into India and Pakistan. There was also other regional uprisings and national movements. The Baluks, who occupy the stretch of territory that is bordering with Iran. So it is east of Iran. All of that territory, virtually up to Quetta, is a part of Baluchistan. And as I was saying, prior to independence, back in probably be around the First World War period, and that period following the end of the First World War, there were a number of revolts, and there was Baluchi nationalist movements, and they did even have a government in waiting prior to the partition with Pakistan. So this territory was incorporated into Pakistan, but it was very reluctant and very unwilling, and the Baluchi revolt has continued, just as the state of Pakistan has continued to suppress any level of autonomy or practice of Baluchi language or cultural activities. So you have this massive area of Baluchistan, and believe it or not, once again, the British state has been supporting the Baluchi nationalist movement. Most of them are based here in London, and I'm sure that following 2014, we will see more increased unrest and activity, intervention in the area of Baluchistan. So that's one to watch for. This is not just the Middle East, this is further afield. We are looking to remodel the world. I know people do laugh when you talk about the New World Order, as though, it's some kind of fantasy, but it is real. There is clearly a plan, and this plan is being put into operation bit by bit. The dominoes are falling, and all these large national states are going to fall. And what I'm just going to leave you with is a question that was asked by the last government under Gordon Brown, and has also been raised by the current British government. What's going to happen to Pakistan's nuclear weapons if the Pakistani state fails? So we're getting towards the end of the show now. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Thanks for listening. Good night.